Today, we're talking about something pretty cool. Regular people turning into data detectives. They're digging into public data to ask a really tough question. A question that hits close to home for a lot of us. Is everyone actually getting a fair shot at owning a home?
You know, a lot of big stories start with something small. And this one, it all kicks off with a single number. A number that hints at a much bigger mystery, just hiding in plain sight. So, yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, so here it is. In Madison County, just last year, the home ownership rate for white residents was over 78%. But for black residents, it was just over 31%. I mean, that's not just a small gap, right? That is a massive chasm. And when you see a number like that, you have to ask, what is going on here? And that is the big question, isn't it? It's what gets a whole group of people, regular citizens, researchers, to basically put on their detective hats and say, we need answers. You have to wonder, is this just a random fluke, or is it a sign of a much, much deeper problem? So who are these data detectives? Well, get this. It's not some big government agency or anything like that. It's a group of really passionate people from the community who are just determined to find out the real story behind these numbers. And their mission? Well, it's put perfectly by community advocate Will Jordan. For them, this isn't just about crunching numbers for a report. No way. The goal here is to tackle a real-world problem that's been impacting families for a very, very long time. And this is a total team effort. You've got this group, the Community Reinvestment Act Committee, working hand-in-hand with local residents. And to really get the job done, they brought in some serious analytical firepower. Research experts like Sir Rader Chapman from the Woodstock Institute. They all have one goal: figure out a strategy for fair lending. And their first step, they're zeroing in on one specific bank's data from 2023. All right, so if you're going to be a data detective, you need the right tools, right? You need a plan. They're not just throwing numbers at a wall to see what sticks. Oh no, they are following a very specific money trail. And one of their most powerful tools is a law called the Community Reinvestment Act, or CRA for short. Basically, it's a federal law that says banks can't just serve the wealthy parts of town. They have a responsibility to meet the credit needs of everyone in the communities where they operate. So this law, it gives these advocates the legal muscle they need to hold banks accountable. So what are they looking for exactly? Well, they're looking for evidence of something called redlining. Now, this is a totally illegal and discriminatory practice. Historically, banks would literally draw red lines on a map around minority neighborhoods and just refuse to give out loans there. Now, of course, they don't draw actual lines on maps anymore, but what these advocates want to know is, are those same patterns still showing up in today's lending data? Their process is super methodical, which is exactly what you'd expect from good detectives. It's pretty straightforward, really. Step 1, get the bank's lending data. Step 2, slice it and dice it by race and other demographics to see where the gaps are, like that big one in Madison County. And finally, Step 3, they take everything they've found and use it to push for real change. Okay, so after all that digging, what did they find? What did the evidence actually show? Let's take a look at the key exhibits they uncovered. So, remember that first number we talked about? Here it is, but as a chart. And wow, when you see it laid out like this, that gap becomes impossible to ignore. This right here, this is the smoking gun that started this whole investigation. Yeah, let that sink in for a second. A 47% gap. It's a huge, powerful number that tells you so much of the story in one quick glance. And it turns out, Madison County wasn't some kind of fluke. They looked at the neighboring St. Clair County, and guess what? They found a really similar pattern. Homeownership for white residents is up near 80%, but for black residents, it's not even 44%. This tells you the problem isn't just about one town. It's looking like a much bigger regional issue. But, just finding the problem, that's only step 1. For these data detectives, the real work starts now. Because what's the point of having all this evidence if you don't do something with it? The next step is to advocate for change. And they have a solid game plan. They're digging even deeper now, looking at things like loan denial rates. They're using some really specialized tools, like the National Redlining Toolkit, to make their case even stronger. They're even applying for grant money from HUD to keep this work going. I mean, it's just a perfect example of how you can take data and turn it directly into action. So all of this really leaves us with one final thought. What these community advocates have shown us is that the data we need to understand our own neighborhoods, it's often just sitting there waiting for someone to look at it. It just takes a few curious, determined people to start asking the right questions. And that brings us to the biggest question of all, the one for you to think about. What kind of story are the numbers telling in your community?